Tonight on Reporting Scotland.
Official acquitted.
Tears of joy. The partner of a former soldier held in India for more than 4 years learns he's been cleared of weapons charges. Senior police boss pledges to make changes to the top team at Crisis Hit Police Scotland. The country's newest bridge, the Queensferry Crossing, will be partially closed for snagging work. Still waiting for justice, the wife of murdered banker Alistair Wilson speaks 13 years on from his unsolved doorstep shooting.
I'm grateful that Unsolved it's opened again and they are looking into it, because our life just won't ever be anything without those answers.
Also in the programme. Is it a team with more to conquer? Scotland's triumphant rugby squad is being tipped to win the Six Nations. Good evening. A man from Argyll who's been held by police in India for more than 4 years has been cleared of all charges. Billy Irving was one of 6 Britons jailed on weapons charges whilst working as security guards on ships in the Indian Ocean. Now a court has ruled they should be freed, but he still doesn't know when he'll be allowed to come home. Suzanne Allen reports.
It was just after 10 this morning when the news came through.
They're all 35 released. All 35.
Oh my God!
Joy for Yvonne, the partner of Billy Irving, and relief. Throughout the last few years, she's only seen him a handful of times.
I still can't believe it. I don't think the news is really quite sunk in that after 4 years of doing this campaign, our whole lives, every hour, every day, that we don't need to do it anymore, that they are actually going to be free and we get them home.
This was October 2013. Billy and 34 other men are arrested on board the MV Seaman Guard Ohio. The charges were the illegal possession of weapons, entering into Indian waters without permission, and the illegal procurement of diesel. The crew said they were there legitimately and had documents to prove it. The Indian authorities disagreed. It's been a turbulent time for Mr. Irving, who's originally from Argyll. In October 2013, the 35 crew were arrested and put in jail. By July the following year, the case was dismissed. For the next nearly year, the men were living in India, unable to return home because the authorities had kept their passports. But the charges were brought again and the men put on trial. They were convicted the following year. Today, the 35 crew were cleared of all charges. Last month, Billy's 2-year-old son William, who has only seen his dad 3 times, helped hand in a petition to 10 Downing Street. Thousands of miles away, this is the prison where his dad has been living. Its conditions are grim. Billy's brother, who lives on Barra, thinks the government should help him readjust to life here.
Getting him sorted out with work, back on his feet financially. He's got a 2-year-old kid now. He's got a fiance. He's got a house. These are all things that he never had before he left. So it's going to be a big step for him. I mean, Billy's liked to enjoy himself in the past. I'm not saying he's not going to enjoy himself with a new family, but he's got new responsibilities now.
It's finally over.
Yvonne hopes Billy will be back for Christmas. The Indian authorities must now decide whether or not to appeal the decision. Suzanne Allen, Reporting Scotland.
Crisis Hit Police Scotland are to make changes to their top management. The Deputy Chief Constable, Ian Livingston, says he'll bolster the team following a series of investigations launched into the force's senior ranks. Our Home Affairs correspondent, Rival Alderson, reports.
It's a period of unprecedented uncertainty for the police service. Since September, the Chief Constable, Phil Gormley, has been on special leave amid allegations of bullying amounting to gross misconduct. But he's not the only senior officer under investigation. The National Force has been rocked by claims that one of its most high-profile officers has been suspended. Bernie Higgins, Assistant Chief Constable in charge of armed policing and public order, is facing a criminal investigation and also allegations of gross misconduct. 5 other officers were suspended or moved to other duties in this inquiry. The Scottish Police Authority oversees the National Force, and its chair, Andrew Flanagan, is about to step down following allegations of bullying behaviour. He'll chair a meeting of the SPA tomorrow. And even the police watchdog, the Chief Inspector of Constabulary, Derek Penman, isn't immune. A senior aide has signalled he's intending to lodge a complaint against Mr Penman. Last week, the police published figures showing a reduction in murders, violent crime and housebreakings. The Federation, representing rank-and-file officers, believes that's what's concerning the public, not problems at the top of the force.
Well, I think these are the sort of things that concern the public in the communities that we serve, and the frontline officers are all still out there. They've been out there all weekend, still doing their job, still going to the calls from the public and out there patrolling to prevent crime, and that's no different from what we've been doing before, and they will continue to do that.
But Ian Livingston, who's heading the force while the Chief Constable's away, tweeted last night he's to make changes. He said he's looking to bolster the senior team and said there's leadership strength and depth across all ranks. The man who set up the single force welcomes the changes, but says major restructuring isn't required.
We just need to make sure that we get the right people in. There was a culture, not so much in Police Scotland, but in the Scottish Police Authority, where it seemed to be about management diktat, not about command respected. So as I say, I think we need to have that change. The arrival of Susan Deacon as the new chair of Scottish Police Authority, I think will help that.
The Scottish Police Authority says it'll remain focused on the vital work already underway to keep improving the service to meet the many changing demands upon it.
Well, Revel joins me. Revel, there must be questions over how any organisation, never mind a national police force, can get itself into this sort of situation.
Well, I think it's because it's such a high-profile organisation that what may or may not turn out to be small or even big events do take the headlines. And we have to bear in mind, as the Police Federation have been pointing out, there are 17,500 officers, and we are talking about a very small number. The idea that officers are being suspended whilst they're being investigated tells you, of course, that so far the charges haven't been proved. They are being investigated. If they're not proved, if they're found not to have done anything wrong, they'll go back to work. And as I said in my piece, the police work continues, and it is continuing to be good work. What is interesting is that Ian Livingston is going to announce changes at the very top, and I suspect tomorrow he might actually bring in some women into the senior management team. There's only one woman, Deputy Chief Constable Rose Fitzpatrick, on that senior management team. There are 4 women who have passed all of the exams and can be promoted from Chief Superintendent to acting or Assistant Chief Constable. So we might see that sort of move to try and broaden the base of the senior management team of Police Scotland tomorrow.
Revel, thank you. Less than 3 months after it officially opened, the Queensferry crossing will partially close later this week for 5 days. Transport Scotland says it's shutting one lane of the bridge to allow for snagging work to be carried out. Lisa Summers can tell us more.
With every new build, you can face snagging. And so too for the Queensferry crossing, Scotland's biggest infrastructure project in a generation. The problems were identified around this section of the bridge, the expansion joints. They allow for deck movements and variations in temperature. The road surface will have to be relifted for the work to be carried out.
A project the size, the scale, the complexity of the Queensferry crossing is open. It's not unnatural to see some issues come to light. The contractor alerted us to these issues. We're taking immediate action, not waiting around. As we say, closing the bridge at a time where we hope will cause minimal disruption from that Thursday evening right the way through to the early hours of Wednesday morning.
These latest problems have come to light after it emerged. There were also issues with some of the bridge's wind barriers. But from the start, it's not been a smooth run. 40 miles per hour restrictions meant no respite from the usual early morning delays. And there are concerns about the impact this latest set of works will have on commuters.
Well, it's a bit of a shambles, really, isn't it? I mean, this is the arterial road network up the eastern seaboard of our country, and yet again we're going to see major disruption in the weeks leading up to Christmas. And everyone knows that this bridge just wasn't finished on time.
The roadworks are due to last 5 days and should get underway on Thursday night.
The bridge will be closed to southbound traffic, so if you're travelling from Fife, you'll have to cross via the old Forth Road Bridge. Northbound traffic will carry on using the Queensferry crossing, but Transport Scotland say that it's weather dependent and so it could be subject to delays or rescheduling.
Transport Scotland say if the weather is favourable, this will be the final push towards a 70 miles per hour limit. Meanwhile, bridge officials are due to answer questions in Holyrood later this week. Lisa Summers reporting Scotland, North Queensferry.
The wife of a bank worker from Nairn who was shot dead on his doorstep 13 years ago says it's difficult for her family to move on with their lives until the killer is brought to justice. Alistair Wilson's murder has baffled detectives, but now they say new evidence has come to light. Fiona Walker has this report.
It was a Sunday evening when Alistair Wilson was shot dead on his own doorstep with his wife and 2 young boys inside.
Who do you speak to? The fire, police or ambulance? Police and ambulance. My husband's just been shot.
The Nairn banker murder is one of Scotland's most baffling unsolved cases, which has left a family and a community not knowing for 13 years.
That's the hardest part, that really is, after not having him. It's just having, well, no explanation, no understanding, and as the older the boys get, that is harder. For us as a family, yeah, we need to know why. This is just so senseless, you know, Alistair's, and for his 2 boys, 2 and 4, to be left without a dad. That can't be repaired, but a who and why would just makes such a difference to us being able to move on.
I just want to have a quick catch-up briefing with...
For the team reinvestigating the case, justice is top of the list. And a key bit of evidence is a mysterious envelope that was handed to Alistair Wilson by the killer. He took it inside, then returned to the doorstep where he was shot dead. It was never found.
This is the best match, the best likeness of the envelope that was handed to Alistair Wilson on the 28th of November 2004, shortly before he was shot. A couple of interesting facts. One, the name Paul was on this envelope, and secondly, when he's gone upstairs to his wife, the envelope is open and there's nothing inside. And I need to know if there's any ideas as to why this envelope may have contained nothing. There's people out there that do know that information, and we need them to come forward.
So no demands, no clues, and who is Paul? Veronica Wilson spoke to her husband about the envelope shortly before he returned to the front door where he was shot.
He was bewildered by the name. It wasn't addressed to himself, and that there was nothing in the envelope. He found that quite strange.
Any idea who Paul is?
No, obviously I know lots of Pauls, but not any connection. We didn't have any sort of lifestyle that there was ever any threat, and most certainly not somebody when somebody's acquired, you know, an illegal weapon and, you know, not harmed Alistair, killed him, you know, murdered him, and with a gun on the family doorstep while the children are upstairs. I don't know what sort of person I'm trying to find.
And another lead. A gun identical to the murder weapon has also turned up in Nairn. They're a rare find in the UK.
2 of them were in Nairn, which would appear quite significant. First one is the murder weapon. This one obviously is a gun that was handed in last year. It came back as a war trophy weapon.
So detectives are investigating whether the killer's gun could also have links to wartime Europe.
I'm really keen to know a bit more history and the kind of recovery of both, especially when this one, the Haenel, is the exact same model.
13 years on, and the police are now revisiting every bit of evidence ever gathered.
You still have confidence after 13 years?
Definitely, I'm grateful that Unsolved it's opened again, and they are looking into it, because our life just won't ever be anything without those answers.
Fiona Walker, reporting Scotland.
About £500 million of taxpayers' money was spent this year trying to get Scots more active. And yet a report from Holyrood's Health and Sport Committee has found the number of adults meeting physical activity guidelines hasn't risen in 10 years. You'll recall the Glasgow Commonwealth Games was supposed to deliver a legacy of participation in sport. Katie Hunter reports.
Tommy Cassidy describes himself as 67 years young. He regularly visits this sports centre in Glasgow. Like many other people in this class, he started exercising after a health scare.
It's because I had angina, bad angina. I had to get a heart bypass. Diabetes, all the usual things that happen to you, and, you know. And so I'd never exercised in my life, so I get referred here with my doctor, and I've loved it.
Experts recommend adults do 75 minutes of vigorous activity a week or 150 minutes of moderate activity. But in 2015, only 63% of adults were meeting that target, a similar figure to the previous 3 years. Today's report found family commitments, feeling self-conscious and a shortage of facilities among the reasons for inactivity. That comes as no surprise to people working in the industry.
You know, some people are maybe in a position where they can't access facilities, whether that be because of the price or, you know, accessibility in getting here or whatever's going on in their life at that time. So I think it's about us trying to knock down those barriers so that they can get along. And maybe that might be just providing exercises out with the venues.
About £500 million of public money is spent in Scotland on physical recreation annually. 80% of that by local councils, which face shrinking budgets. We wanted to ask the Scottish Government why the number of people exercising isn't increasing, but no one was available. A spokesperson said the Scottish Government is doing many things to encourage activity, listing investment in school sports and 150 new community sports hubs as examples. Organisers of the 2014 Commonwealth Games said its success would be partly judged on the number of people becoming active. While there has been a rise in children's activity, views are mixed in Glasgow's East End about whether the Games have made a difference.
Not to me, it's not. But I watch them all the time. Watch Eurosport on my telly. I genuinely don't think that had any legacy effect in terms of longer term people's attitude towards health and fitness.
Yeah, it's made a bit of a difference. But a lot of people here are just too lazy. They don't want to help themselves.
And that's perhaps the biggest challenge for the authorities, encouraging people to take the first step. Katie Hunter, reporting Scotland.
It's 7:15. A reminder now of tonight's top story. A man from Argyll who's been held in India for more than 4 years on weapons charges has been cleared. And still to come, how will Scotland fare in this year's Six Nations? We take a look at their chances following a successful autumn test series. The new Scottish Labour leader, Richard Leonard, is setting up a commission to review the party's tax policies. Mr Leonard made the announcement at an event in Glasgow with the party's UK leader, Jeremy Corbyn. Here's our political correspondent, Glenn Campbell. And be aware there is some flash photography in his report.
It's not just red ties and blue collars they have in common. Richard Leonard and Jeremy Corbyn share much the same brand of Labour politics.
During this leadership election, Richard laid out a bold and radical agenda for Scottish Labour and showed his determination to bring real change to Scotland.
So what does Richard Leonard have in mind? Well, there's an overhaul of party policy, including a fresh look at who pays what in tax.
So we will establish a commission to review progressive approaches to tax that will benefit the many, not the few, that will examine a wealth tax, property value tax, a land value tax, as well as a review of local taxation.
And a commitment to restoring some key public services to public ownership.
Our railways, our buses, energy and Scottish Water need to be taken back and remain in public ownership.
The trouble for Richard Leonard is that in order to put into practice his policies, he must first win power. And that's easier said than done when Labour can no longer call Glasgow, or indeed anywhere in Scotland, its heartland, and when the party is sitting in third place in Scottish politics. But Mr Leonard believes Labour is reclaiming a sense of hope and optimism, and that it's credible to target the next Holyrood election for victory.
People I speak to are very disappointed about where Corbyn is and don't see Richard Leonard as being a credible First Minister for Scotland. Absolutely not.
He's a Corbynista, as we all know. However, I don't think that's going to sit well with the people in Scotland because they aren't looking for a left-wing government up here.
Jeremy Corbyn is welcome to Scotland as often as he can make it.
Richard Leonard is much closer to Labour's UK leader than his predecessor, Kezia Dugdale.
Yeah. Thumbs up, everybody.
He seems to have decided that Jeremy Corbyn can help him win back lost ground in Scotland. Glenn Campbell, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Meanwhile, Labour says 9 Aberdeen councillors will remain suspended from the party until at least early next year. Action was taken against them after they agreed to enter into a ruling coalition with the Conservatives 6 months ago. Labour's Scottish Executive Committee says the councillors will be given the chance to show a commitment to challenging austerity during the budget process next year, and the matter will be kept under review until then. Sport now, and Scotland's rugby team can win the forthcoming Six Nations. Well, so says former international Scott Hastings. The optimism follows 2 impressive wins in the Autumn Test Series, which is drawing comparisons between the current squad and the last Scotland team to win the tournament in 1999. Here's Jane Lewis.
A record win against Australia. Sean Barkley is through, and a roar of celebration from the captain. Rounding off a successful Autumn Test Series. But does it signal a revival for Scottish rugby, especially with next year's Six Nations just 9 weeks away? Scotland were crowned Five Nations champions in 1999. The tournament became the Six Nations a year later, but Scotland have never won the title in that time. 3 third-place finishes has been their best showing in the last 17 years. They've also finished bottom of the table on 3 occasions.
This is Scott Hastings.
However, this 65 times capped player believes 2018 might be Scotland's year.
I believe we can. I think it comes in cycles, and undoubtedly this team have started becoming a very good team. We're not the finished article yet, and I still believe there's a lot more to come to this team. But what it is there's competition for places. And as long as the players can back up their performances on the field of play, it's an exciting time for Scottish rugby.
The counter-attack here as Townsend goes.
A key member of the 99 playing squad, Gregor Townsend is now eyeing his first Six Nations campaign as Scotland's head coach, hopeful that the team's impressive performances can continue.
We've just got to build on that, we've got to bottle that and make sure that this energy, this enjoyment, this hard work keeps on going, because we've got some big tests coming up. Wales, France, England, our next 3 games are going to really test us. Those 3 are excellent teams. But we've got to go in that Six Nations with real confidence that we can do well.
So confidence is up. Hugh Jones scoring again! With hopes of more of this when Scotland face Wales when the Six Nations get underway. Jane Lewis, reporting Scotland.
In football, Celtic's goalkeeper Craig Gordon says securing the season's first silverware is a sign of intent for the rest of the campaign. The League Cup win over Motherwell was the champions' 65th domestic match without defeat. But as Kerdine Idsan reports, it wasn't without controversy.
Another day, another trophy at Parkhead. Another year in the Celtic cabinet for the League Cup. This team has forgotten how to lose, so long has it been since any domestic defeat. 65 matches and counting, although Motherwell are deeply unhappy about the manner of this latest win. They feel Celtic secured a second-half penalty out of nothing. The subsequent sending off reduced a grown man to tears. So, did Scott Sinclair dive, or was he pushed?
What I would say about Scott is he doesn't go down that easily at all. He's a type of player that does try and score goals. He wants to score goals. If he had the possibility of trying to put that in the back of the net himself, I'm pretty sure he would take it.
More to admire about the first goal, James Forrest's fine form continues. The game could have turned shortly afterwards, but for one of the saves of Gordon's career.
That one will be right up there for the reason, the importance of it being a cup final and being a moment in the match that turned the tide our way, and we went from strength to strength from that moment on.
Amid their on-field successes, still time to make a Christmas video. No wonder Celtic are smiling. The man in charge emulating Jock Stein by steering the club to 4 domestic trophies in a row.
It's a very special thing to have happened to you. Of course, we're all so many great managers, but I think it's today's a trophy for everyone really at the club.
By a quirk of the fixture list, Celtic face Motherwell again twice this week in the league on Wednesday and Saturday before a huge Champions League match against Anderlecht, which will determine whether Brendan Rodgers' pursuit of further success continues in Europe into the new year. Kerry Nidsan reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Well, let's see what the weather has in store for us all. Dare I ask, Judith?
It's turning colder. Thank you very much, Jackie. Indeed, it is turning colder. We're not quite into the meteorological winter yet, but as we head through the course of the working week, it's turning colder and indeed colder. Now, let's look at the pressure chart. You can see why. We have high pressure out to the west, blocking off all the Atlantic systems that we normally see. Low pressure out to the east. In between, we're drawing in cold Arctic air right across the UK for the coming week. Now, as far as this evening and tonight's concerned, plenty of blustery showers in the north, becoming dry elsewhere, long clear spells for central and southern parts. A widespread frost forming here, but as temperatures fall away tonight, where surfaces are either damp or wet, there will be quite a major risk of ice, particularly across northern Scotland. There's a yellow warning for that ice, but anywhere will be at risk, really. Strong to gale force northerly winds in the north and along the Banff and Buchan coast, keeping temperatures above freezing here, but in the south, widely down to freezing, if not a degree or so below. So a cold, frosty start to tomorrow. Plenty of sunshine through central and southern Scotland, and here's why. We have the Nevis Range running across the Cairngorms. They act as a barrier to those showers and the strong winds across northern Scotland. So actually, the north sees the showers, but some gorgeous sunshine for the likes of the southwest, in towards Kintyre, the Glasgow area, the central lowlands. Plenty of blue skies here, a beautiful day, albeit cold. We pick up on the showers towards the northwest corner, fewer for the Western Isles, but across the far north, with those strong to gale force winds bringing those showers in, and across Shetland and Orkney as well. There'll be a wintry flavour to those showers for inland parts, particularly over higher ground, but not to lower levels. One or two showers picking up along the east coast as well with that strong wind here. If you're from the east like me, you'll know how it feels. It is a cold one. So as far as the rest of the afternoon and into towards dusk, we're seeing plenty of showers in the north, maybe more towards the east coast tomorrow evening, but dry elsewhere. Again, lengthy clear spells, a widespread frost. I reckon there'll be a risk of ice once again. Then as far as Wednesday is concerned, a very similar setup. Dry, cold and frosty first thing. Those frequent showers continue in the north. Maybe some snow to lower levels come Wednesday as temperatures continue to drop. That's your forecast.
Thank you, Judith. And now a reminder of tonight's main news. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have announced their engagement. The wedding will take place next spring. The couple revealed Harry got down on one knee to propose. She said she had no hesitation in saying yes. The Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh say they are delighted. A man from Argyll who's been held in India for more than 4 years on weapons charges has been cleared. Billy Irving was one of 6 Britons detained while working in the Indian Ocean. They said they were security guards employed to combat piracy. He still doesn't know when he'll be able to come home. Join me for the late news, 10:25. Until then, from all the team, good evening.